So this is a really interesting story. I used to sell a huge amount of quested H208s, which were a double 8-inch woofer, mid range, and a tweeter. And they were a decent size, but they were passive. So they were light enough that I would lend them to people. I said, here, just take them, see if you like them. And they always sold. They were fantastic speakers. But being passive, you had to use a good amplifier with it. And Quested made their own amplifier, which sounded incredible with those speakers. And a lot of people would, buy the Quested monitors and then just use whatever amp they had. And I had to explain to them it made a big difference if you used a better amp. I mean, you could use the Quested, but if you used a Bryston or something like that, it would make a big difference. And one of my clients was Jazzy Jeff. He had a pair of H208s, and I think you can see them. There's a picture I have of Serban at his studio, and you can see the H208s up on his console because he was using the Yamaha, the O2Rs. But what I did, and it was a little sneaky, because I kept on telling him, you got to get a better amplifier. It'll make a big difference. And he wouldn't listen to me. And he was at the other end of the spectrum. He bought an Alesis amplifier, which was really not that great. Because they're thinner sounding and they don't react as quickly, and you don't hear all the transients as good as you do with a great amplifier. So what I did one day is I grabbed a Quested amplifier. I drove down to his studio, and I knew how to get into his studio. I went in there, pulled his Alesis amplifier, and plugged in the Quested amplifier and set it up so it would work next time he used the speakers. So you couldn't see the amplifier because it was underneath the console. So I went back to my office, and then I get a call from him, I don't know, a few hours later, and he goes, all right, what did you do? And I said, well, are you happy? Do you like what? He says, these speakers sound incredible right now. He said, what did you do? I said, I just switched the amplifier out. He said, oh my God. He said, do you know what you did? And I said, what? He says, now I got to buy that amplifier. He says, because my ears now heard what it could sound like. And if I go back to that amplifier that I had that sounded wimpy compared to these things, I'm always going to be looking for that sound. I said, oh, I'm sorry I did that. But he bought it. I mean, it wasn't a cheap amplifier. I think it was around $3,000 or so. But he bought the amplifier, but made a huge, huge difference on those passive speakers. And that's the kind of thing is, and I don't know if it's such a big deal today because so many speakers are active. The amplifiers are built inside of them. But if you have a pair of passive speakers and you change the amplifier, you go with a great amplifier, and the Brysons are really great amplifier. Questeds were made by MC Square. The only thing with the Questeds is they had a fan in them, so they made a bit of noise, so you had to have a machine room for them. But you can buy a used Bryson or a new one, and they just sound fantastic. So that's my story. It was sneaky on my part, but me and Jeff have a great relationship, and when I did that, I kind of educated his ears, and that's what the bottom line is educating your ears about gear.